Okay, it is 2 o'clock Eastern Time here in Frankfort, Kentucky, so we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar, Homeless Customers in Your Library. We are grateful that you could join us here today. My name is Valerie Edgeworth, and I am the Workforce and Adult Services Consultant here at the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. And Ed, I'm probably going to mispronounce your last name. I should have asked you. Ed McLaughlin?
Yes.
That's correct. Wonderful. Is a reference associate at the Boone County Public Library, and we are very grateful to have him here today to present our training. So I'm going to go ahead and transition our screen here, and while that's loading, if you have any questions for Ed as today's presentation progresses, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat box, and then we will have time at the end of the presentation for Ed to answer those questions. So, all right, Ed, I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. Thank you very much. So today's presentation is communicating with homeless customers in your library. A little bit about myself. I've been here at the Boone County Library for 18 years. Started out as part-time circ and moved into reference and started working with the homeless people that were in the library all day. The first thing I did was start with the point-in-time homeless count, which was formerly known as the K count. I think they're transitioning back to calling it the K count. It was an introduction to working with homeless people outside of the library, and it was a good start. And since this is statewide, there's a good chance that they'll probably have this in your community also. It's usually the coldest day they can find, somewhere at the end of January. They do this thinking that the people who need shelter will be inside, trying to get inside, so they'll be staying at the shelters and can be counted easily. And what we found out by doing this is actually it's making sure that a whole portion of that community isn't counted because they stay inside their tents. They don't like to be locked up in a room with other homeless people thinking that they're dangerous. So part of the training with that was communicating with homeless people, and they were telling us how to approach them, how to introduce yourself, and how to ask people questions. And so it's a small basic training that can help you if it's offered in your community. You got to work with a trained social worker. I learned the advantages of having a bird in the hand because when I went out to meet the people, they loaded up my car with gloves and jackets and tickets for food, little coupons for McDonald's and stuff like that, and I was able to give it to them while I was talking to them. And having that got them to open up to me in a way that if I just approached them saying, hey, how's it going, it wouldn't have worked as well. So I learned the advantages of having something to offer. I also got to meet people from other groups around the area that worked with homeless people on a daily basis. So they were able to train me, I was able to meet these people, and that's what helped me transition into my job as what they call the homeless liaison here at the library. If you were going to start working with the homeless people in your area, I would suggest meeting people, talking to them first to see what kind of benefits you can offer to those homeless people in your community. Here's a list of people you could talk to, the police or the sheriff. Some communities, this may be the only option. Your county human services office, where they get food stamps, WIC, HUD, et cetera, et cetera. Religious organizations, outreach services. United Way also has like a 911 phone number. It's 211. You can call them, see what they're offering, see if there's a food bank, rehab facilities, school family resource offices. We use this quite often working with homeless families. And the FSFB, the Free Store Food Bank, or other food pantries in your neighborhood, they might also be able to provide you with resources. The good part is when you meet with one of these groups, quite often they're working with other groups as well. And you can maybe find out about the resources from the other group. So it's kind of a ripple effect. You start working with one group, it moves on to other groups, and you kind of create a network. And this is an example of a resource guide that I'm actually starting to work on for my community. It lists the service provider, what services they provide to people, contact information, and the requirements. And some groups have requirements. You must be a county resident, or you must have a state ID. Some of them require a birth certificate. Under contact information, not only do I have the phone number and possibly an email as well as their business hours, I also try to meet an individual from that group so that they can recognize me and I can recognize them. It's very important to build these kinds of relationships so that you don't have issues later on dealing with each resource that you're providing. This is my desk. I've actually cleaned it up. That one business card is not on there anymore. This is actually what my desk looks like now, and this is where all my resources are. So I've been trying to compartmentalize everything and put it into a chart that other people at the other libraries can access, so that when I'm off, they'll be able to help homeless people too. A little bit about approaching and engaging marginalized customers. It's very important to be yourself. If you are at the library every day and they're at the library every day, they observe you as much as you observe them. I'm not overly friendly all the time, so it's important to show that I'm not being unfriendly to them or unfriendly to the regular customers. I treat everybody the same because they observe that. So when I approach them and I smile and I nod and I say hi, you know, they kind of know who I am. They kind of know I'm not treating them any different than anyone else. So be yourself. I like to say, if you're introverted, smile and nod. If you're extroverted, hey, how you doing? Say hi. Second point, treat all customers the same. Like I said, they're seeing you. So when they see you acting differently towards a regular customer and treating them differently, they feel that, and they may or may not trust you because of the way you've done that. It's very important to patrol the library regularly. I like to walk around the library probably every 20 to 30 minutes. Just walk around the library, smile at people, nod at them. Hey, how's it going? Can I help you find something? But be out there, be visible. This is not only good for helping homeless people, but it's also good for your regular customers. Treat all customers the same. I can't emphasize it enough, so I've evidently put it in here twice. Enforce library rules equitably. And I'll get into that a little bit more a little later on in my presentation. But just yesterday, we've recently gone to a non-smoking facility. One of my regular customers was kind of smoking out of the way where, you know, you couldn't see him. But because I had told 3 people standing in front of the door you couldn't smoke on the property, I had to make sure that I kicked him off in front of those people to kind of show that all of the rules apply to everybody, whether you're my friend, whether I've known you for years, or whether you're a brand new person walking into the building. Things to consider for rules as far as dealing with homeless people and your regular customers. Number 1 rule that we have is no sleeping in the building. And this is a big safety issue. It's one of the ones that you don't really think about enforcing it until you're actually presented with it. I like to tell, you know, my boss likes to point out the fact that if somebody had died in the library at 9 o'clock in the morning and we thought they were sleeping, nobody wants to find out at 8 o'clock when we close that this person has passed away and we didn't say anything. Could be a drug overdose, It could be just about any issue that health-wise that you could think of. So number one is no sleeping in the building. We also have one that says belongings must be with you at all times. So a lot of homeless people are carrying all their belongings with them. Sleeping bags, tents, 4 or 5 knapsacks with maybe food and clothes that they may have, and then you have to make sure that they have it with them at all times. Now, we're not saying if they go to the bathroom real quick that they have to pick it up, but if they go outside to smoke, they have to cross the street, so therefore we ask that they bring their belongings with them. This is very important because if something goes missing and they're homeless, some of them will cause quite a scene, and they'll start making accusations against other people. So we make sure that they have all of their stuff with them at all times. Common sense rule here, customers cannot be under the influence or sell or possess illegal drugs or alcohol on the property. I have one homeless gentleman, I've kicked him out on the average of 3 times, 4 times a week last year for drinking alcohol. He was in the bathroom, I would go in, I'd check in the morning, nothing in the trash. He'd go to the bathroom, I'd come out, and Ice House was his preferred brand of beer. We would ask him to leave for a day, which brings me up to the next one, which is a scale of enforcement. For the first offense, sleeping, eating at the computer, small infractions of our rules, we kick them out for the first day. And we just say, hey, you're out for the rest of the day. You're more than welcome to come back tomorrow. Second offense, leave the property for the day. If it's sleeping, usually we have them do that. We'll remind them 5 or 6 times. We'll kick them out for 1 day, let them come back the next day. If it's for the drinking, we'll move them up to the rest of the day, then a week, et cetera, et cetera. On the third offense, we ban them for a week, and after that, before they can come back into the building, they'll have to talk to the branch manager. Branch manager will usually explain to them that it will be a month, up to a year, and that's about it. We don't. I try to be as nice as I can. My boss is kind of the enforcer. So if I'm talking to them, they're usually okay, and if it's my boss talking to them, then they won't be able to come back for quite a while. And this is the meat of the presentation, why waste library resources on the homeless. People are always asking me about this. I have a customer, we had one 2 weeks ago, he was walking down the road, stopped into the library to use our bathroom, excuse me, made the comment, what is this, a library or a homeless shelter? Went into the bathroom, came out, and walked on his way. I happened to have it was on a Tuesday, so I happened to have a van from the Welcome House giving medical checkups and providing resources over in the parking lot. And the gentleman was taking pictures of it. And, I told my boss what had happened, and he was, well, what do you do? I mean, we're providing resources. It wasn't any cost to the taxpayers, but we were providing resources to people in need. So that's basically what we do here at libraries is we provide information. And that's what I try to do when I work with the homeless, is not be the provider of the resource, but to be able to provide the information on where to get the resources. And as much as we help the homeless people, they become less of a burden on the rest of society. So if I can get a homeless person set up with a local shelter, they're not on the streets. If we can get them a food, card or get them a meal for a day, they may not steal something that's not tied down so that somebody else doesn't suffer for the person who is homeless trying to survive. By talking to the people in the library and telling them, hey, you smell kind of bad, and having a resource like we do with the local shower ministry, you're able to provide them with a place to go to actually get a shower. And this is what I mean by assisting them, we're assisting our regular customers. We don't get as many complaints now about the smell of the customer who's homeless and might be sitting next to somebody who isn't. So I like to look at it as giving a hand up to somebody rather than a hand out. By telling them where to go to get the resources that are available in my community, or telling them that the resource isn't available in that community, they can often get to where they're going without wasting taxpayer money in order to do so. So by providing resources to homeless people, we can actually improve the situation. I've included on here some links to help you get started. These are different articles. The articles all mention things that will help you communicate to homeless people or see what other areas in different communities, what they're doing in order to address the homeless problem. Even if you live in a small town or a small county with a very limited budget, there's often resources there that you may or may not know about that aren't getting taken advantage of. Talk to your police, talk to them in the community, find out, talk to people at churches. I find it's very easy to just, hey, my name's Ed, I work at the Boone County Library, saw you offered some of these different resources here, and I was just wondering, would you be willing to partner with us and maybe, I can send people to you to get help and you can send those people to us, because here at the library we provide a lot of resources as well. We like to help people with resumes, resume writing, job applications. I filled out my monthly report last month. I filled out 13 job applications and was hired 12 times. So, that's pretty good, except I didn't get the one job. Helping people just to get in touch with the resources that are available is what we try to limit ourselves to. I have a lot of people who have talked to me about helping homeless people and, hey, what do I do when I can't, they've run out of money or they don't do this or they don't do that. It's really important to realize that when you're helping these people, you're just providing the resource. You are not the resource. You are just the point of information. Sometimes I send people to different places so that they can get the help they need. It's very important to me that when I send somebody, if I see them again, I ask them, were they able to help you? You need to find out if the resources that you are providing are actually being helpful. I've sent people to some places and, one or two times I'll have the people come back and everything was great. I got all the help I needed. I really appreciate it. And then after a period of time, because of job turnover, funding, other resources, other reasons, they've come back and said they didn't help me at all. They treated me badly. And you need to know this when you send somebody. And that's part of the reason I talk about in the resource guide, you need to find out what is what are the resources that they're providing, and are they actually providing them? Because sometimes you will find out that they are not providing those resources. Also, it's good to know the fiscal year for the company so that you don't run out of funding before the end of the fiscal year. I've had people who said I was able to go up there and ask them, and they told me they didn't have any money. And they were, I think they kind of dropped the ball because they did not, when they told them they didn't have any money, they didn't tell them that, this is the beginning of July and we don't get our annual budget done until July 15th. So if they had waited 2 more weeks, or if those people had told them, hey, 2 more weeks, they would have realized that they were going to get more funding and be able to help them at that point. So I have buzzed right through this in 20 minutes, and I guess that's because of I didn't have any questions.
You've got multiple questions lined up for you, Ed, so I'll be ready to start on those whenever you're ready.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, our first question, and I want to go back up here in the chat just to make sure I get it correct. And again, any other questions as we go along, if you think of other things, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat box. Our first question is, can we ask them in a nice way to leave backpacks, etc., outside?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's part of me saying, you have to keep your belongings with you. If you do tell them to put it outside, what you need to do is to provide some way for them to have it secured. So I don't know if that would be like a locker. We're actually considering putting in lockers so that people would be able to keep their stuff in it. The problem is that you have to maybe have a safe place put aside in the library. We have a small corner where we used to have people put their belongings while they were in the library so that they weren't carrying them with them. It was over by the Lost and Found. You have to remember that these are quite often the only things they own. It's everything. All their clothes. If they're not wearing all their clothes, if it's summertime and they're not wearing all their clothes, they are usually carrying all their clothes with them. It may have their phone, it may have a couple of cans of food, sleeping bag, tent, and all of this stuff does clutter up the library. So you need to have a safe place for them to put it because you have to realize, like I said, it's everything they have. So they don't want to lose it, they don't want to get it stolen. If they leave it at their campsite, there's a good chance the police could come and take their stuff, and that's why they have it with them in the first place. So quite often I'll just approach them and say, excuse me, we can't have all this stuff together here in the library. You're blocking the aisle. Could you place it under the table, or could you move it over here? Or is there a secure place outside where you can put their stuff? That might not work very well in the rain because they don't want to lose that stuff to the weather. But yes, I would absolutely politely ask them to not carry it around with them.
Great. There's a couple of comments here just coming in on the chat recently. Looks like Louisville Free at the main library does have lockers for individuals to use while they're in the building, and patrons who use them have to check back every 4 hours. So that is good to know. Moving on to our second question, says thoughts about positioning or hiring a social worker on library staff or shared among county libraries in close proximity to assist the homeless.
That would come down to budget, and I don't know if that would really work for a library. Now remember, I'm not a professional. I've never taken a class. This is just 15 years of working with homeless people. I lived in Las Vegas before this, and I dealt with a lot of homeless people there. Lived in the Philippines, which is an impoverished country. I work in a library, and I work to provide resources. And depending on the political climate of where you are, you may catch a lot of guff for having somebody on staff specifically geared towards helping needy people. Like I said earlier, people talk about, why are my tax dollars going to waste on this? If you have somebody who has a library background with maybe a degree in social work, or a social worker who can go ahead and get certified as a librarian, then perhaps that would work. And I think sharing it, having that person, but the problem is a lot of times they'll be trying to do things that they could do, working as a social worker that we as a library can't do. And once again, it comes between the separation of what our job is and what their job is. I think it would be great if we could hire a social worker here in Boone County, but I know we get a lot of kickback and unhappiness from our taxpayers.
Another comment just came through as an example from, I guess Louisville has received a multi-million-dollar grant from HUD. Louisville Metro received that grant, and LFPL is should be able to get a part-time caseworker at the main library to assist with youth homelessness as a resource. So that's great to hear. Again, keep typing in any comments or questions for Ed. Ed, moving along to the next one, it's kind of a two-part question here. Let me scroll down here. How do you handle homeless individuals who leave their belongings in the lobby overnight? And then in addition to that, also hiding their personal belongings under bushes outside your building.
Okay, yeah, we've dealt with that problem quite a few times, and it's less and less, and you have to be, we have taken stuff that was outside and put it in the dumpster area. Now, we have a closed-off dumpster. It's got a little fence around it, and we put it over there and not put it in the dumpster the first time, but we put it over there by the dumpster so that when they come and ask for it, we show them where it's at, and we make sure that they know that the next time it happens, we will be throwing it in the dumpster. You have to be tough with the rules. You have to enforce them. We have very simple rules here at the library that are meant not only to protect the library, but also to protect them. Like I said, the sleeping is the big one. The belongings being left around unattended. This is everything you own. Why would you leave it in the library overnight? So, we would definitely put it away and make them have to ask for it, and then explain to them that if it happens again, it will go in the dumpster. And you can't feel bad about it when you have to do it because they've been warned, and you know that if it was everything you owned, you wouldn't let it get thrown in the dumpster. So make sure that the rules are clear. We have put it on our website that the rules are, they were supposed to put it on the website. I haven't checked recently to see if they have, but they have actually put it in the code of conduct, and so that it can be on the website so that you can show it to them and say, look, here are our rules. You have to follow them or they will be thrown out or you will be removed. And this way you can just print it out for them if they're not on a computer and show it to them. So yeah, I would just make sure that you put it over by the trash can and let them know that it will go in there the next time.
Okay, Ed, moving on to the next question. How are you dealing with hygiene, specifically lice infestation? We have not had that issue come up yet. We have had issues with the bed bugs, as probably every library around here has. We have contracted out to a pest control company who actually brings in dogs if we do cite bed bugs. We call them immediately. They bring in dogs to make sure that they sniff around and they find them. If they find them, we treat the area. We pull all the books off. They bake them, and we treat the shelves. I keep isopropyl
alcohol, the 91%, in spray bottles around the building so that if they are spotted, you can spray yourself off. It does take direct contact, but it is a small step to make sure that you don't bring them home with you. We also make sure that if a customer has returned books or items or we've noticed the bed bugs, we actually ask them not to come back to the library until they have treated the problem. And that does go for staff as well as customers.
And Ed, I'll add on to that. We actually here at KDLA did a webinar, I believe it was last year, and it's available on our archived webinars page, called Keeping Up with the Creepy Crawlies and How to Deal with Bugs in the Library. So I will post a link to that archived webinar in the chat box as well.
Okay.
So moving on to the next question, was there any pushback with banning patrons?
No, not really. We do not really ban patrons. Like I said, if a homeless person is here and they fall asleep and we warn them twice, we will ask them to leave for the day. We make it a point to say it's a safety issue. We're sorry, but we've asked you 2 or 3 times to wake up. You can't do it. You're more than welcome to come back tomorrow, and we'll be more than happy to, just start anew. We don't have any hard feelings about it. It's just you cannot sleep in the library. There was some kickback or pushback, from when we started talking about banning people for more than a week or a month. I think the lawyer said that we can ban them for 1 year at the tops, but then we were informed that we could also just ask the police to trespass them from the property, which in essence bans them for good from the library. So we haven't had any pushback on it, but a lot of the people, or the only people that I know of that we've actually had to leave the library for a year or more, are usually marginalized people who don't have any other place to go. So it's not something we like to do, but we haven't had any pushback the few times that we've had to do it. It's best to talk to the director, have the director approach the board or the county lawyer to see how they feel about banning people for extended periods of time.
Okay, next question. Keep those questions coming. They're all great. Do you have problems with panhandling in the parking lot or inside your buildings?
Yes and no. We do have people who have tried it. I like to find out about it immediately. If I have seen people outside the front door, we have our lobby area we can see from the front desk, and we can see right out to the front parking lot. And if I even see somebody smile and say something to somebody and then the person hand over a cigarette or anything, I'll come outside and say, hey, you can't ask for stuff. We get people all the time coming in and maybe, hey, can I get a ride here? And I immediately just walk over, let them know you can't ask people things like that. No panhandling. If you do get caught panhandling, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And, yeah, we don't let them ask people for stuff. You can come in the library. You can use anything we have here. We have free coffee that we have outside for the customers until 1 o'clock. More than welcome to help yourself to a cup of coffee. But you're not allowed to ask our customers for anything. There's no panhandling here.
Okay, moving right along. Suggestions for dealing with homeless patrons camping out on library property overnight.
Okay, and that's something we've addressed with quite a few people. We have a camera that shows the front lobby area, and we can see people sometimes do this, is come out and try to camp out there. And we inform the person that there is no sleeping on library property. That's the rule. And even if we're closed, that doesn't give you permission to come and sleep on library property. So We tell them if it happens again, we may have to call the police or we may have to ban them. I have talked to the local police department and asked them, hey, could you do, on your rounds, just drive by every once in a while, and if you see anyone, just ask them to leave. We're not asking that they get arrested. We're not going to press charges, but if you see them on the property after 10 o'clock at night, sleeping or laying down on the property, would you just, and they've agreed to do so. They ask politely, you don't demand it. Keep a good relationship with the local police department or the local sheriff's office. We provide Wi-Fi service, and it does not get turned off at 8 o'clock at night when we close the doors. So we have people driving up in the parking lot, parking their car and using the free Wi-Fi. Some of the police officers who use their own personal computers also use the free Wi-Fi. So we can't ban people from the property without banning those people who might be using the Wi-Fi.
A couple other comments from other participants talked about asking the police to come over if they have someone sleeping on their property. And another comment, we are finding that they are dodging police patrols and can't sit on our property all night. So that's definitely an issue, I guess, that many of you are experiencing. I'm glad we're able to talk about this. There's some other questions coming in, Ed. We're caught up at the moment, but there are still several people typing in the chat pod. So any other questions for Ed, feel free to go ahead and chat those in. I'm going to just wait here a second and let everybody take a minute or two to get their questions loaded.
And I will say that, if people are coming on your property at night and you can find out who they are, you can talk to them on an individual basis and just explain to them that the police will be making patrols and that if they are caught, they will be banned from the library maybe for a week or two until, whatever you come up with, so that maybe that'll discourage them from camping out.
And it appears that some libraries have gone ahead and made that decision to turn their Wi-Fi off after closing. A couple people have commented that. So another question here, have you had problems with individuals using your bathrooms for shooting up drugs?
We've been very lucky with that. We've only had like 3 overdose incidents in the past 10 years, and one of them was Benadryl. It was not pretty. It was pink. But the other 2 were, we called the police and they came up. They don't really use our bathroom for shooting up, and I think part of the reason is that we've got a very small bathroom and there are so many other places to go around this area. You may want to, if you do have an issue with it, you may want to have, when you go to do your walk around every 15, 20 minutes, like I do, you might want to stop into the restroom and just walk in there, kind of walk around. It may take time for that to be a deterrent, but when they see that you're doing that and walking into the bathroom every 15 to 20 minutes, it does deter some of that. We had a problem with not drugs or alcohol, but with vandalism in the bathroom about 10, 11 years ago, and we started going ahead and every 15 minutes or so going in the bathroom, making it a point that when somebody was in there for more than 2 or 3 minutes, going into the bathroom and then kind of making sure everything was fine and then coming out, and the vandalism stopped.
Great question about your patrols. Is that only you that's patrolling in the library, or are there other staff members involved as well?
Other staff members are supposed to go ahead and patrol, and they do, but it's usually they just walk through quietly and walk back, and then usually when they get to the front desk, if they've noticed an issue, usually they just come grab me. So I'm kind of the designated person to handle the issues, but, they've woken people up, made comments to them about keeping their stuff in the hall, outside in the walk area. and ask them to tuck it around the table. So as a branch, we kind of all follow the rule of just walking around when you have time. And it really helps cut down on issues that maybe we wouldn't notice if we were just sitting behind the desk.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, a couple more questions. These are great. Do any of the other libraries have security guards in their facilities? And everybody individually can answer that in the chat box as well. And then do you have some type of incident tracking system in place?
We kind of do. We used to have security guards at the Hebron branch before we sold that building and we built a new one there. We have had security in the past, and it's usually not very, it wasn't because of homelessness, it was because of unruly kids. After school, the Hebron branch was located right across the street from the elementary and the high school, so we had security guards for that. We don't really need a security guard here because we stay on top of the problems and the issues as they come up. All the staff members know that they can call the police, the non-emergency number, or in an emergency, call the 911 number. So we have that, available to us at all time, and everybody knows they won't get in trouble for calling the police. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Let's see here. That was basically it's just a comment. Everybody was wanting to know if they had other libraries have security guards in their facilities.
Yeah. Part of the reason we never had to have one here, even though we are considered the most inner city, and I say that laughingly, branch, is I'm also 5'11", 240 pounds, and ugly. So I kind of deter a lot of that stuff just by being here. I believe the second part of the question that I was thinking about was the reporting.
Oh, okay, the reporting part. Okay.
We do have incident reports, and we also have cameras around where we can take stills and share it with the other branches. So if a customer is banned for, say, a month from this branch, we can go ahead, find a picture of them on the camera, and email it to the other branches so that, hey, if this customer comes in, they've been banned for a month, and this is why. So we do share that information between the branches.
Looks like we've got a variation here in the chat box. Some have security, some have part-time security. Looks like the majority do not have maybe actual security guards, but maybe some have some cameras. Some do not have cameras, but do track incidents and patrons that are banned. So we've got a wide variety of circumstances here going on throughout the Commonwealth. If I've forgotten a question, please make sure to type it back in again. At the moment, I am caught up, but it says multiple people are still chatting. So this has been a great discussion, and we've still got a few minutes. So if there's any other questions, let's see what comes up in the chat box. And while I'm waiting for any other questions to come in, I am going to go ahead and transition over here to our closing screen. We've got Ed's contact information loaded here at the top. We want to give a shout out to the Institute for Museum and Library Services for helping sponsor today's webinar and making it possible. We've got several other trainings coming up here that we want to make you aware of. Be sure to check out the KDLA Continuing Education Calendar for information on those. And if you're not following us on social media, we encourage you to do so to get more information about our upcoming webinars and trainings. Also going to go ahead and load a link here real quick that will actually pop up on your browser for our survey. This survey information is extremely important for our Institute for Museum and Library Services funding that we receive here at KDLA. So we do ask you to take a moment and complete that survey at the end of the webinar. So at the moment, I'm not seeing any other questions. Just want to make sure before we let Ed off the hook. Ed, any closing remarks?
Actually, I did. I saw a lady had commented about the having a man walking through shouldn't make a difference this day and age. And I don't know if that's referring to, if it's a man or a woman. I do want to say that while I may look intimidating, a lot of times I find that having one of the female librarians walk through the library is just as effective as me walking through the library. It's just a lot of these people, homeless people, especially the older ones, look at libraries and librarians as authority figures. And I have a young lady who works here. Her name is Gina. Awesome kid. She's really gung-ho, and when she walks through the library and starts yelling at people, I see these guys jumping around like Jack in the boxes. They do exactly what she tells them to do. So she looks like she's kind of introverted, but when she starts telling people what to do, they do listen to her. And just the fact that she walks around occasionally and looks around and makes sure that everything's going the way it's supposed to be going, she's just as effective as I am. You may be an introvert, you may be an extrovert, but as long as you're going out and you're making the effort, like I said, smile and nod. You don't have to be, hey, how you doing? Hey, have a nice day. You can just smile and nod, and then they'll know that you're acknowledging them as people, and they will treat you the same way in most cases, unless they have really bad psychological issues. So I just wanted to kind of agree with her on that. It doesn't really matter if it's a man or a woman.
Thank you, Ed. We've still got a few people typing here, so I want to make sure that we can get all of these questions answered. It's been a really great, informative session here today. We'll wait another few seconds just to see if there's any other questions or comments.
I am here Monday through, excuse me, I got a little cough. I'm here Monday through Friday. I work Tuesdays until 8 p.m. The rest of the week I'm usually here till 5. I included my email as well as my phone extension. And if I can help you, or if you have a question you think about later and you just want to ask me about it, I'm always willing to talk to people about it. If there's something I can do to make your job easier, to help these people that need the help, I'm more than willing to do so. So feel free. My boss actually likes me doing this stuff, so I just want to put that out there.
We appreciate it very much. Again, we are recording today's session, and we will make it available on our archived webinars page within the next week. And so we encourage you to share that with your colleagues at your library or anyone who could benefit from this information. Also, for those of you attending live, you will receive your certificate of attendance from the certification section probably within the next 7 to 10 days. Any other questions before we sign off for today's webinar? Well, Ed, on behalf of KDLA, I'd like to thank you again for repeating your KPLA session today as a webinar. And this has been great. And again, any other questions, Ed's provided that information where you can reach out to him. And we hope you all will join us again on another KDLA webinar very soon. Thank you all very much.